Thank you, Emily, for those wonderful comments. Isn't she beautiful? Wow. It was 25 years ago when I first learned that Eric was a stutterer. It was on our first real date, after having met on a blind date, that Eric began to tell me that when he was in law school, he was the center square of the bingo board. Now, I found that a little strange, and I'll explain why. If you're the center square of the bingo board, you're that annoying law student raising his hand, talking in class, annoying teacher's pet. That was Eric. Now, I think Eric saw how horrified I was, that he quickly went on to explain that well into his 20s, he was characterized as a severe stutterer. That as a teenager, he could not imagine, in fact, it seemed impossible that he would one day be able to socialize with friends the way he does today. And that by the time he was in grad school, he knew he wanted to do public service, and he might be a prosecutor and try cases in front of juries, but he needed to achieve a level of fluency which he simply did not have. So he told me that he started to work with a speech therapist who said to him, "Eric, you need to stop hiding your stuttering, and you need to stutter more." And that's exactly what Eric did. For those of us who know Eric and seeing him today, he's still that center of the bingo board, and he's still chatty Cathy. But we also know that he's gone on to be this very talented lawyer. And I would say that he is a verbal force of nature. Now, if one is not a stutterer, it is almost impossible to imagine how hard that is. Until this day, I know when Eric has a presentation or has some public speaking engagement. It hits him at a subconscious level. He worries about it endlessly. He sleeps badly. He becomes grouchy in a certain kind of way. And he's grouchy a lot, but this is a special kind of grouchy. He goes on and does a great job. And I believe it's because while the anxiety of stuttering is always with Eric, Eric has never let his stutter define him. Now, I didn't fully appreciate how hard and personal stuttering really is to Eric until we decided to have children. If you're a lifelong stutterer, you worry every single day that your child will be a stutterer too. Stuttering is highly hereditary. At the age of 2, our son Robert had a severe stutter. Now, many children stammer at that age. It's completely age appropriate. But at 2 years old, Robert was having those blocking sounds and those physical manifestations. I remember he would hold his little mouth because he was so frustrated that it wasn't doing what he wanted it to do. And that's when we met AIS, and we met the wonderful and late Catherine Montgomery. We begged Catherine to take our son, even though he was too young for AIS at the time. We went on to work with AIS for over 2.5 years. By the time Robert was off to kindergarten, AIS had bumped him off the path of being a stutterer. About 10 years later, Robert delivered the commencement speech at his middle school graduation. And he did an incredible job. He got a standing ovation, in fact. And I remember having a flashback to those days at AIS, sitting in those little chairs, doing those little speech games that you do with your speech therapist, and thinking that what AIS did was a miracle. What AIS did for our family is something that it's hard to imagine. And I know that AIS continues to be there for Eric. Ladies and gentlemen, my husband, Eric Dinallo.